Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have a very special guest. You know his name. If you listened to my show in the past, it's Dr. Hans Utter. Last name spelled Utter. And this will be our sixth episode on his advanced Soviet research on cybernetics, biofield energetics. He's got new PDFs and slides to show, so we'll go through that. We've kind of gone through the old slides, and this is being broadcast live now on X, Rockfin, and Rumble. So I'm actually haven't been on Rumble in a little bit, and they actually made it easier on StreamYard and on Rumble, which used to be a little bit more difficult to stream to. But so that'll probably be the way it is in the future. YouTube says I'm engaged in the propagation and dissemination of harmful content, which I don't even know what this no specifics either, just harmful content. I guess but I'm bruising people's brains or something.
Like, what is harmful? Like harmful content? Okay,
I mean, I don't even swear. I don't know. If you're critical of anything, I guess it's harmful. Like if Biden's an old, demented, corrupt criminal, and his son is a crackhead who's advising him on his politics. Like, it's crazy. Like, I had this comment today, like, man, your social media has gone so weird. I'm like, are you paying attention to what's happening in the world? We're literally at war. The Russians are threatening nukes, and you think that this is normal? And you literally have a demented guy with a crackhead kid, and his wife is like running the country, and you've got these fights within the Democratic Party. They're trying to get rid of him. I mean, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. And nobody wants Kamala Harris, who's like a diversity hire, to be president. Can you imagine? Like, this country has fallen that far. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think what you'll find, so this was just, I wanted to sort of get a topology, a different angle. So this is my new angle on some of this material in terms of this infrastructure, superstructure, hidden structure. But one of the things we'll see, and this is what I actually went through today, looking at Hegel and Lenin, I read some stuff on Lenin, and talking about that. And I'm going to explain the dialectic in a very different way, but the opposite is contained within its own self, right? So there's a constant conflict. So the opposite, right? And so that's what Biden did, right? He said, Vice President Trump. And then he said, the president of Ukraine, Putin.
It's Putin, right?
I mean, but that is literally the opposite, right? And so I'm just with that example. Thank you for bringing up Biden. This gives a whole different angle on this material, which I didn't catch or ascertain until right now. But we are looking at the total derealization, the simulacrum, the artificial, but yet at the same time, this is our concrete reality we're inhabiting. And so how, you don't even know, is this whole thing staged, right? I mean, and this is, I'll be honest, I'll just say that there are many people that go down this route, of saying everything is fake. But in a certain way, what do we know except for what we're receiving through our informational channels, right? And what I mean by this is saying that I'm not saying that the actual footage of Biden saying this or that or whoever. I'm not anti-Biden. Uncle Joe, Uncle Joe. Joseph
Malarkey. No malarkey at all. There's never been any malarkey in this whole presidency. So that's nice.
I mean, but the debate fail, and these are like hardcore gaffes. I mean, these are like, you just called Zelensky President Putin. Right. And that guy's, besides playing the piano, have you seen that?
Yeah, with his penis. Yes.
Yes.
I've seen it's dancing and weird drag, and he was basically a stage performer. I mean, it's a perfect role because he's a puppet. He's not a real politician. He's installed by the U.S.
But he has certain personality traits.
Yeah. Oh, they put him together well. They have the gravelly voice. They have that ridiculous outfit, and he gave him as much coke as he wants. Well, so you've got all the fake drug confidence, like any other confidence of the insane heavy coke user, you know.
Well, that's the thing, though. You get a personality like that, right? Performer, very, superficial, totally ego driven, and then put them as the president. Initially, they're acting, then they believe the role. Just like Jim Morrison. They always said that about Jim Morrison, right? Is that Jim Morrison he started to believe the hype. He started to see himself as the Lizard King. I'm the Lizard King, I mean, but anyways, we just
Mr. Mojo Rising, right? That's his anagram of his name. So that's what
and obviously, I had a cassette tape like Jim Morrison's poetry. It's a posthumous album where the band played music behind the recitations of his poetry. So it's like one of those, I don't know, I'm sure it's out there all over the place, but it, kind of an obscure, like a super fan album. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
But he talks about him being possessed by the spirits of this, like these Indians were like killed. They died, right? And he said they possessed him.
Wow.
With their spirits. Wow. Childs crush the fragile eggshell of a child. Wait, ghosts crush the fragile eggshell of a child's mind. That's a line from that song.
That's from LA Woman, right? Is that right?
No.
What song is that from?
That's from this album.
Oh no, that's in one of the songs. That's in one of the songs.
Oh, okay. Well, it's in this poem too. Okay, so yeah. So that it's in this. Well, think about that. This whole thing, in a certain degree, is that ghost crushing the child's mind. But what is it? Okay. Anyways, we veered off the course here with a little rambling. So
Peace Frog. It's in Peace Frog. That's the song.
Peace Frog. Okay, yeah. So, but he in this poem, he probably took that line out. But he talks about these spirits possessing him. Right.
Wow.
And but again, back to the thing is that they say Morrison believed that he believed the hype. That's you know what I mean? Like that's one thing. Say like Zelensky, he's also brought in, this ties into game theory, this whole thing, complete game theory. And you can, especially when you have certain very aggressive types, right, of people. I'm not saying, typecasting, but, and then you could say we put it in this context. Suddenly think of like the most irritating boss you ever had. Suddenly make this person, global dictator.
Right.
What would they do? It would suck.
Right. Yeah, it would terrible. There's a lot of bad bosses out there too, man. No doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, well, let's dive in. Let's do this.
Okay, let's do it. So this is for people who are not watching on Rockfin or X or Rumble. The first slide says cybernetic Marxist control grids war on consciousness, or the war on consciousness.
Yeah, well, that's the reason it's called the war on consciousness is because people talk about class consciousness, but it is based on consciousness itself,
right?
Not and how that is understood. And I'm trying not to go like off the philosophical rail, so to speak, but like say Hegelian philosophy, but he had a very strong element of spirit, right? The phenomenology of spirit, all this stuff. So everything in Marxism is material. It's material, but it's
dialectical materialism, right?
Yeah, but so I'm going to give a little bit different take on the dialectic also. So but it's important because consciousness, as we get into this, we'll see a bit that consciousness is central to this. I just think it's interesting. A lot of times, we learn things, but there's always a little more depth you can go into and get a little closer view or a different angular view. So we'll continue.
All right, let's go to slide 2.
So Leninism is really in terms of the concrete actionable paradigm behind many other veils. So it's very important. But philosophy is materialism. So this, what does it mean? Absolute materialism. I mean, this is at least okay. We can go into some other things like that book, like Marx. Talks about Marx and Satanism and his hymns to the devil poetry he wrote. But we'll take it at face value. Philosophy is materialism. That's it. So any ideal, right? There are no ideals. So I have an ideal of truth, justice, purity. No, because that's a non-material thing. That's gone.
Right.
Even all values. Right? What is a value? A value is not material. I value human life, but there's action, there's this, there's that. Okay. Anyways, and if I go too deep philosophical.
No, but it's true. I mean, it's interesting. Their philosophy is like total no God, right? So they're atheistic and everything's material. So that's the foundation, the basis, the underpinning of all of Leninism, right? So that's, you have to understand that. Like there's no like you're going to heaven or you're doing good work so that you can get your reward at the gate of St. Peter, so to speak.
Well, we're talking like a really rigorous, like just think about that, like absolute materialism. Like, like for me, could I say everything is just, okay, matter? Okay, we'll go through that, but it also means if everything is material, then it is possible. Then consciousness is material and can be controlled, or can be, whatever. Okay. Anyways, so the dialectic. So this has been, portrayed. It's sort of what do you call a bugaboo? No, predilection. No, it's irritating a little bit. Like the dialectic. What is a dialectic? It's a basic type of argument, but in Hegel, the dialectic became the foundational principle of understanding everything, where basically, and actually reading Hegel, right, his project was to take the rational intellect and sort of basically merge with God, to become God, to hold and contain the entire universe within the mind, within the supremely intelligent mind, right? Obviously not the mind of the proletariat, whatever. But anyways, but he talked about spirit, so he had this strong thing of spirits and non-material. But they took this dialectic, which is, I have another slide I made up, but it's thesis, antithesis, right? These are the opposite, the black and the white, right? Complete opposing, and then a synthesis. But when you suspend, in Hegel, there's sort of a spiritual transformative aspect of this, right? Or spiritual within the context of total, rationalism. But Lenin, he said there's no spirit, there's only material reality. And that the fact is that the dialectic it's not a progression, it's a stasis. I mean, it's a potentiality. Okay, so the contradictions, opposites contained in all matter and social formations. Everything that exists is an inherent state of conflict. This is, the thesis, antithesis, right? These are the opposites, right? Everything basically you say as at war in the entire, but it's this or this, whatever. The opposite is contained in it. So within this principle, imagine this. So say you have, white Christian civilization in North America, in Appalachia. That's a thing, but it contains this opposite, right? If you have a well-balanced, harmonious community, maybe this is hypothetical. What's the opposite? Complete degradation, meth, total travesty, complete, just absolute human degradation. Which this exists. It's not hypothetical. But anyways, that opposite is contained in the initial formation. Does that make sense? The way to destabilize it, there is that sort of polar energy in a particular social formation or whatever. But this is a philosophy, right? I'm not saying this is true, but I'm saying that this is the philosophical basis, which goes a little bit deeper in looking at the dialectic. Go ahead, William, if you want to.
No, but it's very important. So these guys had a philosophy, the communists, the Marxists, Leninists. It's very important for them to understand their outlook, because the atheistic, the total materialism without trying to achieve a Geist or spiritual idea is very important to understand. Like, it's all present in material realms. So that control over the material at its apex is the proletariat ruling everything. That's really their materialistic apex, right? Is that. And don't get in the way. I mean, we can get a lot of Leninism means murder. Like, he knows that to get to that point, they have to kill people. So that's why communism was so violent. It's kind of a secret element of Leninism that isn't disclosed, and nobody in the communist worldview will tell you. But 150 million people are dead. But Lenin wrote about it because they all go back to the French Revolution, and Lenin wrote sometime in the early 20th century. We didn't kill enough people. Let me see if I can find that. It's from the Lessons of the Commune, right? So they're communist, right? The French Commune. But it was something like that. I don't know if you've read that. Let me see what it is. Anyway.
But so this is not, behind the, elaborate rhetoric and complexity, right? I'll say that, Marx's writing. Go try to read that stuff, man. I mean, there's a lot of just, mental labyrinths that really, that's just some of that's subterfuge. You strip it away, but this is philosophy as materialism, as is not. This is, this is like army of God or army of Satan or army of whatever. Like, this is going to be enacted. These ideas are not inert. They are and must be acted upon, created, manifested. So it's not, say Heidegger, writing for 50 years, on these books. It's like, okay, you're writing. No, this philosophy is materialism, meaning you must engage
in the material realm, right? So it's not some kind of place where you go to a seminary or some holy place and pray or meditate. This is from Lessons of the Commune. This is Lenin, 1908, published in the Zagranitnaya Gazeta. But this is literally his statement. Mindful from the Paris Commune, mindful of the lessons of the Commune, it knew that the proletariat should not ignore peaceful methods of struggle. They serve its ordinary day-to-day interests. They are necessary in periods of preparation for revolution. But it must never forget that in certain conditions, the class struggle assumes the form of armed conflict and civil war. And there are times when the interests of the proletariat call for ruthless extermination of its enemies in open armed clashes.
Yeah. So let's look at, and I don't know, I'm just bringing this up as an example. I'm not white. I'm transracial.
There you go.
I'm transracial. I'm all races. I'm whatever race I want to be. I can get any job anywhere. I can get any job. Okay. But, you look at this to understand when it says like, some of the, the rhetoric, white people must be eliminated, but they say, oh, it's just the idea of the white race. It's just the idea of the whiteness. No, they're talking about actual physical extermination.
Yeah.
This is the rhetoric, and this is for Lenin. He talks about education by force. We'll get some more veiled.
Ruthless extermination. Ruthless. Solzhenitsyn, I got to go through these talks that he gave in the 70s because he was in the U.S., but he was talking to the proletariat. He said every time these guys get in power, they're ruthless, man. Because that's what they're taught. That's their philosophy. Just like you're saying, it's all materialistic.
Yeah. So it's actually, though, it's what is the core is power. Power is a synthesis, right? So he's really looking at turning consciousness into power. Okay. Let me just, so this is a book that I was, it sort of styles itself. This was published, I think, in the 50s or something. 67. Okay. 1957 by the presidents and fellows of Harvard College. So this is Leninism by Alfred G. Mayer. But what I realized, just kind of reperusing this text, even though it's, we're sort of at the, height of anti-communism, right? He's putting a positive spin on Lenin, even though it seems like it's a critique, right? But there's a lot of great information in here, but I'll just read this real quick. Okay. Lenin liked to compare his strategy of revolution favorably with that of Blanqui, with which, by the way, it had nonetheless been identified frequently. Louis Auguste Blanqui, barricade fighter and underground conspirator, who figured prominently in all revolutionary upheavals in 19th century France, is admired by the Leninists for his revolutionary idealism, but at the same time condemned as a utopian dreamer for failing to appreciate the problem of power. Blanqui and his conspiratorial friends believed in the seizure of power by a small conscious minority, an elite of legislators who, after seizing the state, would introduce democracy, that's my scare quotes, and hand power over to the common man. Blanquism is a theory that denies class warfare. Blanquism expects man's delivery from wage slavery, not through the class war of the proletariat, but through a conspiracy of a small intelligent minority. So this is the last thing was from Lenin, quote from Lenin. So if you're familiar with him, Louis Auguste Blanqui.
I've never heard that name in my life.
Part of the French Revolution, the various revolutions in France, but very important for this doctrine. But there is a small elite that is creating the revolution, right? He says it right there. Lenin says, but through a conspiracy of a small intelligent minority.
There's Blanqui, yeah. I think he was released, revolution, further imprisonment. I think he was like the later revolutions in France, 1850s.
No, 1805.
1805, right.
So when is his first?
Right. Socialist revolution should be carried out by a relatively small group of highly organized and secretive conspirators. Interesting. 1805 to 1881.
Yeah. Okay. So
when was Napoleon? 1810 to 1814. Yeah. Something around there. Anyway.
So he's a very important figure that is not very well known. But anyways, I'll just continue here real quick. Lenin, in contrast, believed that consciousness turns into power only with the help of the masses of the population. So, but when you say consciousness, we have to understand consciousness as we get into this. It's the totality, everything. Okay, it's everything. It is.
It's not individual. It's not an individual consciousness. So it's the total group is consciousness, right?
It's a total sphere of all, everything, all being. Every, family.
Ontology. That's ontology being.
Yeah, but here, this is actually really fascinating, is to see that they actually apply this directly, right? And just imagine reducing everything to bits and bytes. Oh, it sounds like AI. Sounds like the fourth industrial revolution, maybe. But it's very powerful because most people, you don't get, yet. No, look, there's missionaries. They'll go out, they have ideals and they go out and they, missionary zeal, right? They go out and
convert, spread the gospel.
But some people go in extremely dangerous environments.
Yeah, they've had missionaries killed in all over the place. Brazil, strange places. Still to this day, actually, there's people who died in Haiti recently.
But take that missionary zeal. They are bound by a non-material philosophy, an ethical guiding foundation, right?
Right.
So remove that. It's just about power. Okay. Anyways, but you think about that energy, like people risking their lives, because I want to share the gospel. I'm going to go risk my life, and go into these remote regions. There's many examples, but imagine that energy stripped of anything that's not material, that's not, whatever that.
Incredible.
So anyways, so part of this construction of, wait, did I finish this? Okay. I don't think I finished it. The masses will have to carry it. Okay. Consciousness turns into power. I'll read it. Lenin, in contrast, believed that consciousness turns into power only with the help of the masses of the population. He never ceased emphasizing that it is the masses who will have to carry out the policy of the party, and that the party, therefore, remains an insignificant sect if it does not obtain. Lenin said the word conquer. Not this guy who's supposed to be critiquing Lenin. He uses the word obtain. Lenin said conquer a working majority. Paraphrasing Mark, he wrote, theory becomes a material force only when it takes hold of the masses. It is seizure of a, okay. So anyways, we could leave that there. But yeah, so this is the Russian Studies Research, Harvard University Press.
Yeah, this is it. You can download the PDF. I will put a link in the show notes if people want to get this. I just downloaded it.
Well, I have a hard copy, but it's.
Oh, you're lucky.
It was stored in my garage.
It says here you can pay $55 for one if you want.
Yeah. But a fascinating thing is there's an abandoning of cause and effect. Within this dialectic, right? You have the opposite contained in its own self. There's no cause and effect anymore. It's just simply, okay. Yeah, I was going to say this, but I cannot remember. The word is like implementation, or enacting, or it's just you do what you're doing. So there's no. So this is how you're dissociating from cause and effect. We did this. We're implementing the Great Plan. We just murdered 250 million people, but the cause, implementing the great, agricultural plan in the Ukraine or whatever, and the effect is millions dead. It doesn't matter. Somehow they're in this non-causal. But it's also cause and effect means retribution, right? Divine retribution, doing good works, karma, whatever you want to call it. They're stripping that away. So it's again, we can see the millions dead. This is not abstract philosophy.
No, it's Black Book of Communism goes in details. 150 million people killed. More than Hitler. Communism has been a very ruthless, exterminational ideology. There's no question.
Yeah. So to give some props to at least some Marxist thinkers. So they took Hegel is one of you ever try actually sit down and read Hegel. Actually read his books. Have you ever tried to read Hegel?
I've tried and it failed. I really just was so
it's hardcore.
Yeah.
It's like but it
it's
all
like reading G.K. Chesterton or something. So verbose, and the prose is tough. It's really tough.
It's an incredible level of complexity. Okay, it's not. There's a lot of this was mimic, especially in like postmodernism, in other types of writing, where they sort of create this obtuse complexity layer. Oh, this is great philosophy, but the actual ideas are superseded or hidden. It's sort of a smokescreen, or it's just BS. But Hegel, no, I mean, this is just extremely high levels of understanding, of actual insight, concrete, right? Not, you know what I mean? Like very, like we don't have this level of concretization they had in the 16th, 17th, 18th century, right? We have, everything is mediated. We live in a mediated world. We live
very much so.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. But one of the things they took from Hegel and actually applied is that everything is interrelated. Every single thing. There is, even though it's all material, there is sort of a unitary connection, interconnection of everything. Okay. And this was understood. Okay. So this is very important, right? Because this allows you to do, at least that's sort of the negative aspect would be the large scale manipulations. One factor influences another factor, right? So the end point of this is control the chain, which is what Lenin said, control the chain for the mass mind. You find the interlocking chain that, is substantive. It contains material, belief systems, gender, as we'll get into, the neurophysiology, economic policy, food, ingredients in food, media, etc. All this is contained, but the chain. So this is this kind of the secret. So the dialectic is sort of frozen in time, but it's seen as an operational principle. And so this is also how you can do very, long-term thinking, right? Because it's like everything has been reduced to these things. So the chain is the mass mind. You say anything and we can go.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it's some of this stuff is new to me. I was never, really a communist. Never appealed to me. It's funny too, because there were outright just communist at Berkeley. Like, it was like there was no question about it. So, but I was around those types of people. But I saw there were a lot of like co-ops, kind of communistic, and just totally full of dysfunction. Like, there would be, one person who does all the work, and then like three guys sloughing off or smoking pot all day, and then it just didn't work. It just didn't work to what I would expect. I mean, so it doesn't make me a capitalist. I don't have any capital, so I can't be called a capitalist. But I certainly was never thought communism, at least in the States, or communistic ideas really work that great. But it's interesting to see how they think.
Well, again, there's this, quote unquote philosophy as applied as a strategic means by people who are beyond any, there's nothing, there's no moral compass. It's right, simple power.
I don't think it's consistent with Christianity too. I think that was a turnoff for me too, because that's kind of like my worldview, which is not as common as it used to be. But so it's like, why would I be a communist? Like, I don't believe in this. And it's also, I don't think about the whole, no individuality in communism also is very bad. I think it's a lack of human individuality that's also in conflict with the Gospels, because it's all about you. Like, Christ is talking about you and your moral choices and all this stuff. And I think communism is closer to Marx's satanic worldview. So I think that if you adhere to this, I don't think you can believe in God.
No, I mean, of course not. I mean, that's disavowed. I don't want to go far afield.
Yeah,
but no. What I mean is that, but there's, if you look at, mentioned Under the Sign of the Scorpion, I mean, they adhered to many very special astrological convergences for the major events, and they were all high-level Masons, etc. But that's saying they're just materialists. You know what I mean? So and then that Marxism and Satanism, I forget, it's a book I think I written in the 70s.
Yeah, no, that's right. I forgot
Wormser, is it Wormser?
Wormser, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, but anyways, we'll just look at this. This is just the philosophy being presented. So I'll save the commentary for later. So let's go forward here. See what I pulled together. Okay, it was I was trying to use this graphic thing on PowerPoint, but I think it also it's kind of like a work of art, but it moved everything over. But even though it's moved over, right? So it should be that triangle. Think of this, the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, problem, reaction, solution, right? Is a basic understanding of that. But it's also that there's two totally conflicting spheres, right? These are the against, and then they're brought together, which is something new or greater. So for Hegel, this represented basically the evolution of human culture as it moves towards, you could say, the realm of God almost, or like because it's gonna, the different things that arise, the different social formations will come together and they'll create something new. And and so this is the progression. It's not just a single individual, right? This is the whole historical. Yep, there it is.
Richard Wurmbrand, yeah.
Wurmbrand. So anyway, I don't want to put, it is not the best graphic. It looks like the formatting off, but the way that it's together, okay, it creates kind of a visualization, because in this way, the thesis and the antithesis are held together, right? So they're holding the two opposing forces, like the violent, the forces, just, but understanding that dynamic, right? So if you say, I mean, just give me two opposing forces, anything. And
opposing forces. Let's do a car and a wall. I don't know what opposing forces philosophically.
No, I mean, okay, well, car and a wall. There you go. But this is where that element of, you're in the car, you're driving straight forward, you're driving towards the wall. Are you going to stop? You to keep going? Well, in this, with the understanding of both potentials, right? Car, moving force, obstacle, right? Are pre-generating the outcome. The car hits the wall,
right?
Potentially. So the destruction is inherent in the production, right? So it's a very unpleasant and diabolical way to see life. But anyways, we can leave this. I'll sell this for $1.5 million.
Yeah, really, you could. It's a modern art, dude. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So I'll just hit a few more quotes on this. So operational code. This is one of the secrets of Leninism, the operational code. And it is what it was termed. This is a Lenin quote. The whole art of conspiratorial organization must consist in utilizing everybody and everything, and at the same time maintaining leadership over the entire movement. So so Lenin actually, he directly says it, the whole art. So the operational code is the hidden, it is the actual sort of dictates of how this is implemented in real time. But going back to the interrelatedness, this is it's all encompassing. Okay, I'm not talking like divine level all encompassing. I'm just talking about materiality, medicine, education, media, science, parking policies, right? I mean, think about this. Like you can create a lot of irritation in life by having lots of bureaucratic issues, problems, right? Think about, bureaucratic things, like student loan or whatever, you know what I mean? Taxes, IRS, so this is not just the institution, but what the institution creates or generates. Like, for example, toll roads, you got lots of tolls. California, look at all the laws, right? So it's not just the restriction, the regulation. like there's I heard some interview with a lady who has it used to be a vegan restaurant chain, all local organic farmers. And then she started offering meat because she said, when I really understood the agriculture industry and I understood I want to support this thing. And and she kind of, started offering meat at these vegan restaurants. Massive protests there. Basically, people are losing their jobs. They're shutting this down in a very violent, aggressive, vicious way. Climate,
right.
Chaining yourself gluing yourself to the highway.
Right. That's all part of the operational code from the left. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, these are deployments of the operational code.
Right.
The people doing this are not running the show. They're being deployed. They're not running the show. Of course not.
No.
But this is how to engage and use, as he says, everybody and everything. Right. So I'll just
what is 81? What's that represent?
No, that's just it's my reference number for the page. I'm using this as an outline, so you could. We don't really need to see the slide, but
next.
Yep. No. Again. So it's okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Next is okay.
But Lenin, that's the whole thing. Is like I've run into people who say, "Oh, I'm a Stalinist. I'm a Leninist," but unless you realize and understand what Lenin's saying, you don't know how pernicious this is. Like what he really thinks. But materialism, dialecticalism. There's no moral code or order. It's all about getting power. It's operational code. We're all in this together like a functioning organism. That's why the communists are so strident. It's because they've been taught to be that way, right?
Yeah, or those in. Well, I'll just read this here real quick. So, for this reason, Professor Leites is justified in using psychoanalytical symbols in his discussion of the operational code. So, psychoanalysis. So, even the subconscious mind, right? There's no space that's inviolable.
Right. Good point.
Okay. Continue.
Yeah, pervade everything, all pervasive, right? That's communism or Leninism.
Absolutely. Okay. Leninism can be treated as a state of mind, but it can be treated with equal legitimacy as a systemic political theory. The reader should keep in mind the fact that these two views must complement each other because the theoretical and psychological aspects are interdependent. The theoretical and psychological aspects are interdependent. Look at all these cult movements. Look at, that thing in New York City, right? Where they had all these high-level people with this like free love society. You remember that?
Yeah. Manhattan Cult, I think it was. And that was the woman that ran it. Is that right?
This was communist based also.
Wow.
They had people who were successful lawyers, doctors, writers, but they had this thing, the child gets taken away. The women have to sleep, the sexual aspect of it. It's very important.
Right. Well, that's interesting that you say that because it brings to mind the whole Symbionese Liberation Army, which is based on all that stuff. And part of it was free love. Like those were bourgeois values, right? So that's part of it is this like breakdown of the other order. So that pervades everything, right? Just like you said. So it's everything. It's all encompassing, right?
Yeah, and so this particular group in New York City, it was.
Yeah, it's called the Manhattan Cult Story. I actually talked to a guy who was in it. His name was Spencer Schneider. And his book is Manhattan Cult Story, My Unbelievable True Story of Sex, Crimes, Chaos, and Survival.
Yeah. So I've read that book. So that's really good, but just keep that in what I'm talking about. So, maybe a little bit, too nuanced or whatever, maybe more, I'm trying to convey something to understand. Like that is an exact direct manifestation of this. Okay. So the psychological, the symbolism, that whole group, right? But this was more of a, positive, happy, self-empowerment thing, right? It wasn't a religion.
Right.
It was not a religion at all. But this free love thing, which initially seemed, oh, it's really great, right? But they're literally destroying the family unit. The problem is the father. The problem is the family unit. With who's the guru guy? I forget his name, but he was he did. I think he didn't even have a doctorate. He wasn't even a licensed psychologist in that Manhattan Code.
Oh,
But
right.
but this is just okay. Anyways, so I'll just finish this paragraph. On this. So again, to see that the dialectic, it's not unfolding in time. You know what I mean? Like this is radical materialism. You know what I mean? That to take that viewpoint is to internalize it.
Right.
But it justifies killing millions of people. Okay,
Right.
I'll finish this
But the
paragraph.
certainty too, like this is the right thought, and that's why they're so ideological and so rigid. Really, like you're right and you're wrong. If you're not, you're it's an interesting kind of amoral moral code, right? Because they claim that there's no moral code, but that's their code. So if you disagree with that, you're against the inevitability of this dialectical process, materialistic process.
Yeah. And then I'll just continue with the quote here. So the attitude on which the entire operational code is based is the deep-seated hostility towards everything that exists.
Wow. He
And
wrote that? Lenin wrote that? That's in
no,
Leninism?
no, this is Mayer.
Oh, Mayer.
This
Okay.
is a Mayer book. Yeah.
So he's saying that Lenin says it's an opposition to everything that exists.
Yeah, he's breaking down all
Gotcha.
He's giving sort of the quintessence of the operational code. Lenin says this is sort of just a breakdown. So we have to go through all the polysyllabic nonsense. But I'll start again. The attitude on which the entire operational code is based is a deep-seated hostility towards everything that exists and a desire to manipulate the features of a hated environment. So that's a great quote, right? The desire to manipulate leads to a strong striving for domination, since things, people, institutions can be manipulated only by those who have acquired power over them. I'll read that again. So this is the desire to manipulate leads to a strong striving for domination, since things, objects, right, whatever, people, institutions can all be manipulated by those who have acquired power over them, control the supply chain, whatever, etc. Hence, the operational code is a set of precepts resolving around the problem of control. That's cybernetics. It's governance theory. It's governance. The control mechanism is the governance operational principle. This power can take an infinite variety of forms. Infinite variety of forms. So the cult, like the Manhattan cult, that's an example, right? I mean, if you read the book, you see like how much. But other thing is, yeah, you were involved in this. I do think there's that kind of like, dude, you should have walked away. At a certain, whatever. People get caught up in this stuff, and they whatever reasons. Mostly, it's their ego actually that leads them until they can't get. Then they're stuck. But that being said, look how many people that influenced and affected. High level achievers, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
So, anyways, in variety forms. Hence, the operational code is a set of precepts revolving around the problem of control. How can the party acquire control over people and institutions? How can it avoid being controlled by them? How can it acquire complete mastery of any situation without in its turn being mastered by the hostile forces that make up the world. So this is like kind of the Leninist art of war. But anyways, you want to say anything about that?
No, it's really just interesting how they thought about it and how aggressive they were, and almost like, and nothing is inviolate. And I think that's what's the scary element of like the communists is not, that's why they can go into churches and burn them down or shoot people or kill kids and just like make a mess out of everything, is because that's their ideology. Is like it's supposed to pervade everything.
Yeah, and some very, I have to say, like some very excellent, work in neuroscience, like Luria, and a lot of this neuroscience, Isaac Luria was also, very important, in that this this time, so there's some, within this. I mean, this is a whole, this is like it's like a whole infrastructure, so this is on the other side, let's say the power of philosophy, right? The power of these conceptual things are extremely powerful. It can shape entire societies, with the understanding of that, right? So this is just it's Sergei Eisenstein film form, which is very interesting. 1949. So he was a filmmaker, communist filmmaker in Soviet Union, but he wrote.
What was his famous film? It was about the battleship, right?
Yeah, Battleship Potemkin.
Potemkin, that's right. Yeah, they say that sequence of like the baby coming down the stairs was like one of the most artful sequences in a film ever made. That's like referenced all the time. So,
yeah. No, he's a great artist, but it's just so some of these. So this is not anything against him, but just some of these, applying this to media, applying this to consciousness, etc. So this is page 46 of film form, a dialectic approach to film form. It's a dialectic approach. Okay. A dynamic comprehension of things is also basic to the same degree for a correct understanding of art and of all art forms. So a dynamic comprehension of things. So things means, substantive realities, right? So, okay, anyways, in this realm of art, the dialectic principle of dynamics is embodied in conflict as the fundamental principle for the existence of every artwork and every art form. Conflict. Okay. So this is what I'm saying, going back to this thesis antithesis, right? So every man has a battle inside themselves, right? Every family is like, it's all these, but conflict is the basis of everything. And this is what he's saying. Right? So that's what I understand, the dialectic of conflict. Okay. As the fundamental principle for the existence of every art form. For art is always conflict. 1, according to its social mission. 2, according to its nature, which I would say medium. 3, according to its methodology. According to its social mission, because it is art's task to make manifest the contradictions of being. These contradictions I just talked about, right? Thesis, antithesis. To form equitable views by stirring up contradictions within the spectator's mind, and to forge accurate intellectual concepts from the dynamic clash of opposing conflicts. According to its nature is a conflict between natural existence and creative tendency, between organic inertia and purposeful initiative, hypoatrophy of its purposive initiative. The principles of rational logic ossifies art into a mathematical technicalism. Hypertrophy. Okay. Anyways, dilutes art into formlessness. Nature industry. So, anyways, it's quite interesting. But these two things, talking about space-time continuum, the quantity of the interval determines the pressure of the tension. The quantity of the interval determines the pressure of the tension. This is we look at, media events. We look at various conflicts. We look at various things, the way society is steered in certain directions. How did we end up here? Right. So this is, anyways, that's, I think it's, I won't go further into that, but just to give
it's interesting how they're thinking on all levels, right? About everything. It's this whole philosophy is going to apply culture, psychology, everything, just like you said, right? Farming. I mean, they applied ideology to farming. Didn't they have some quack farmer who like came up with some weird ideas, but he was accepted because he was a communist? I forgot that whole story. Or a botanist or ethnobotanist or something. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's one of the weird stories of communism, of Soviet communism.
I think I overexerted myself here preparing this.
Okay.
I got too far out. I'm just
okay.
No, let's just go to the next one.
We're good.
Go to the next one.
We are good. We're okay. There we go. Okay.
So now, I'm going to go into a little bit of this stuff how it's applied to telepathy, electronic signal beaming into brains, various psychological research. So this is just, I wrote it.
Do you want me to read this for you?
Go ahead.
Okay. The Soviet newsman Leon Trotsky wrote in his 1924 treatise, Literature and Revolution, would make it his purpose to master his own feelings, to raise his instincts to the heights of consciousness, to make them transparent, to extend the wires of his will into hidden recesses. This materialist insistence on the malleability of thoughts and emotions interacted with a recrudescence of pre-Soviet superstition, a form of political sorcery owing more to Rasputin than Lenin.
Go ahead. Go to the next one.
Gastev worked on the, quote, training agitation, unquote, of the new worker with a particular emphasis on the thought process that went into labor. Unlike Taylor, Gastev stressed the importance of workers' involvement, calling for a work discipline driven by passion, not duty. In his 1921 Program for Cultural Settings, Gastev notes that, quote, self-observation automatically gives rise to the need for an exact art of representation, unquote, which on the assembly line meant that the worker would be both the supervisor and enforcer of his own actions. In this vision, Velmensky observes, labor as creative, dynamic, energetic switching constituted the basis for a system of self-monitoring circuitry.
This is really important. Okay. So, anyways, we'll get this is just, a little brief foray into some of the research on telepathy, on thought control, whatever. But we see from this materialistic perspective, telepathy, psychic phenomena are not excluded.
Right.
So it's training agitation of the new worker. So it's a training, but it's an agitation. It's a disruptive process, right? You're agitating. You're shaking up who they were. You're forming something new, right? But the thought process that went into labor. So this is where it sounds good. Oh, passion, not duty. Okay, that's great, right? If you work from passion and not duty. But then what is duty? Wait, notice the language, duty. But I have my duty to my family, my duty to my country. That's very different, right? I don't necessarily have duty if I'm just going to a factory. What duty do I have to the factory? No, I just, whatever. But so self-observation automatically gives rise to the need for an exact art of representation. So what they're talking about is the inner representation of the individual to themselves. This is a mind level, right?
Right.
And so this is very important. This is, anyways, okay, people may grasp it or not. I'll put it out there. So you are the supervisor and enforcer. You're split, right? You have the inbuilt, like Zappa, Joe's Garage, the central scrutinizer, inbuilt in your own brain. It's inside your own brain. You are
right. Like the communists or these theoreticians wanted to implant the monitoring concept within their own mind to make them monitor themselves, right?
Yeah. And so supervisor and enforcer, you're watching over it, and you're going to sell what enforcer means. Language is very important in these kind of things, right? Like Lenin, like you have to see when he says conquer as opposed to obtain. There's a big difference. Lenin said conquer. Anyways.
Amazing.
But supervisor, enforcer, this is depression. This is, mental illness. This is neuroses. Right. This is
it's almost like a schism, just like you've talked about before. It's almost like a schismogenesis, right? Schism in the own mind, in your own mind.
Yeah. And so Wilhelmsky, in this vision, okay, as he says, labor as creative. So creative. So something new. It's arising. Dynamic. It's changing. It's occurring, in the moment. Energetic. It's taking input. Right? It's taking something in. Switching. But these are creative, dynamic, energetic switching. This is stuff where you have to know what it really means. Like a lot of the Macy conferences writing and this and that, you have to know the code to unlock what they're saying. Right. So these 4 terms, but this is talking about, okay, constitute the basis for a system of self-monitoring circuitry. That's a human. Individual is a circuit. Self-monitoring circuitry. So all the way back in 1921, they're talking about the global technotronic control grid. 1921 program for cultural settings. Okay, you go to the next slide.
That's incredible.
Now you can look up all the stuff there.
Okay. Do you want me to read this?
Go ahead.
The assumption that thoughts can be monitored and controlled just as physical actions can was based on the groundless assumption that thoughts could be detected and transmitted like radio waves. This idea emerged first out of the research on animals. The animal trainer Vladimir Durov, who made his name as a circus clown, was the first to, quote, successfully, unquote, test telepathy on animals. In 1919, during a conference hosted by the Institute of Brain Research on mental influence on the behavior of animals, the neurologist and psychiatrist Vladimir Mikhailovich Bekhterev presented Durov's and subsequently conducted similar experiments on human beings. Their results, which were never replicated, led Bekhterev to think that the, quote, the mental effect of one individual on another is possible at a distance through some kind of living matter, most likely through Hertz waves, unquote.
So what's 5G? What's 6G? Hertz waves.
Right, bandwidth.
So you go to the next one.
Okay. I'll read it. Bekterev's wave theory was further corroborated by a third man of science, an electrical engineer named Bernard Kaczynski. Kaczynski claimed that the, quote, transmission of mental information at a distance is the same electromagnetic as an ordinary radio communication, unquote, thus giving telepathy a supposedly dependable scientific foundation.
Okay, you go on.
If radio technology had given mind control spurious credentials, the television was seen as the conduit by which it would reach the Russian masses. Indeed, there was considerable confusion at the time about the distinction between the two technologies, as the transmission of images from a distance was perceived to be photographic evidence of telepathy's verisimilitude. The Soviet government had grand hopes for the dissemination of telepathic propaganda via television. Quote, news and propaganda were routinely broadcast starting in 1931, unquote, as Velminsky notes, even though the, quote, the Soviet industry of the time had not yet produced a single television set, unquote. The only devices in circulation were built by amateurs and hobbyists on the basis of plans that were made freely available to the population.
Yeah, you go ahead. Just finish this. All right. Okay. Well, I guess that's it. So, this is, I guess I didn't get all the where's the
pictures. You have 20 slides.
Oh, you know what? I think a couple of these, I think
Slide
looks like there may be some blank, or just, whatever slide going into the occipital telepathy. So, but they're working on telepathy and thought control, along with very, very rigorous research into neurophysiology, right? Along with something that sees, like, if someone says, my love for my wife, is that something someone can buy for me? Is that a commodity? Is that a compound? Is that but imagine you have a completely materialistic ideology. It's seen as just simply, you want to, influence somebody. I mean, so there's no value. There's no value at all, right? There's no valuation. There is anything can be assumed, any kind of persona, any type of enticement. That's why it's almost satanic, right? It's this complete, there's no, it is literally the godless world, yet they're using these certain types of forces with some type of understanding. That's what I'm trying to convey, right? Is that so that some of the research on telepathy, etc. It's that's par for the course. And so, we've when I finish this out, this series, I did not put this in. There's another whole movement in Russia it's really applying this stuff in an extremely positive way, which I think is very good. So go ahead and bring up that PDF of that.
Okay, let's do it.
That declassified.
It's a DIA, controlled offensive behavior, USSR. That's what it is. Do you want me to scroll through it?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can read this. I don't know how much. Do you want me to try to read it?
Well, no. I'll just go through some things.
Okay.
It was published 1972, but he's from the Captain Medical Service Corps, and so it's a very interesting and important document, because it goes through a lot of these things that have been. If we get to it, one of the things of psychopolitics is to stress that these techniques don't exist. It's impossible to remotely manipulate people with frequencies, with other things, but to understand the interconnectivity, look at certain type of food additive, look at a certain type of media imprint, certain type of stimulation from the media, look at a certain type of frequency from, let's just say, frequency from music, from certain types of music, frequency from television, and then let's look at creating a sort of an event horizon. So this is like, inducing mass insanity. You're using all these different things. I'm saying, like, pharmaceuticals, population, game theory, but also you have to understand, like, I think most people, we think that, okay, I'm here, even if you're in prison, you still feel like you're a human being, right? You still feel like, even if whatever has happened to you, still, I'm still alive. There's still something in me, right? This is what they're going into, right? This is a level of the consciousness, the level of the self. So they'll infiltrate psychology, infiltrate medicine, infiltrate. Okay. So this document, just go ahead and scroll through. Basically, people were not listening to him on this data he was presenting, but it is still an important record. So just go forward through it.
Do you want me to read from this one?
Just yeah, maybe the first paragraph.
So from the preface, it says, this report summarizes the information available on Soviet research on human vulnerability as it relates to incapacitating individuals or small groups. The information contained in the study is a review and evaluation of Soviet research in the field of revolutionary methods of influencing human behavior and is intended as an aid in the development of countermeasures for the protection of U.S. or Allied personnel. Due to the nature of the Soviet research in the area of reorientation or incapacitation of human behavior, this report emphasizes the individual as opposed to groups. It is not within the realm of this report to make an in-depth study of research and utilization of the multitudinous aspects of psychology and psychiatry. It is strongly suggested that these subjects, the military use thereof, should be established as separate studies. The importance of basic and applied research in these areas should not be overlooked.
Okay, you can skip the rest. It goes through. So continue. Next page.
So there it is, table of contents.
Yeah. So at this time, he's looking at also, so Northern Ireland, right? There's a very strong, leftist communist influence in Northern Ireland. But anyways, it goes through.
They also unleashed a lot of mind control MK techniques on the Irish Republican Army, IRA. So when they caught somebody, they would make them stand up and give them music. So all these techniques were in play during the Troubles, like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. I'll go through some of these. So we have, section 2, events in Soviet Union, Soviet responses to events in the USSR, and then section 3, Soviet psychology and psychiatry, a general review, Soviet military psychology, Soviet use of psychology for behavior manipulation. So, we'll go through like this whole idea of infiltrating these institutional levels of power, the chain, right? So Lenin talks about the mass chain. Well, there's mass chain doesn't necessarily mean, every, we're talking about for every single person. Of course not, but a mass chain of an organization. Just say a mass chain for doctors to make them prescribe a vaccine that's experimental that could kill you. That's like a science fiction book I'm gonna write. Like where millions of people died on Earth due to this experimental chemical that was basically mandated to be injected. Oh,
yeah, it's hard to believe. Right.
Anyways, but
they can do that, right? Yeah.
Soviet psychology and then Soviet research. Okay, psychology for behavior manipulation. The next one is very important, just to show that these are the detail level, right? You can read that, William, section 4.
Parapsychology in the Soviet Union, and then it has subsections: background, significance of parapsychology in the USSR, the apport technique, ESP and psychokinesis, and summary and military implications.
Right. Could you go back? I think
sure. But this is something I need to read just myself.
So, but section 4. So before we get to that deeper stuff, psychological phenomena, psychological weapons. Part A, temperature. Part B, atmospheric conditions. Part C, olfactory phenomena. Do we even think about these things as influence at all?
But they are. Yeah.
Part D, light. Part E, sound. Part F, electromagnetic energy. Part G, deprivation. Yeah. So, but keep going.
It's incredible. One. Mental suggestion and control behavior, hypnosis, the use of hypnosis in medicine, hypnosis and control behavior, artificial reincarnation through hypnosis, telepathic hypnosis, conditioning through suggestion, hypnopedia, subliminal perception, and suggestology.
Yeah. So these are, it's very interesting, just interesting things to see, especially as, the whole psychedelics thing is a huge resurgence, right? For, I don't know, probably 20 years now, whatever. But I mean that, this, just an example of and again, like, so I have a I don't have a dogmatic perspective. I just have a just let's look at it. So we also don't, from when I started out with this, you would go back to Charles Darwin, right? British elites. This is this materialist theory, but the materialist theory will indeed encompass even what others may term spiritual phenomena.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
And this can be manipulated. Whatever. Okay. But like, look at this is so fascinating. Psychopharmacology in the USSR, section 1, general main psychotropic substances, psychowarfare agents. Go ahead and read out.
They call it psychowarfare: diethylamide, lysergic acid, LSD, and psilocybin, piperidyl benzylate, and piperidyl glycolate. I don't even know what those are.
I don't know what those are.
Countermeasures. Current research interest in psychopharmacology, USSR, bioamine research. I don't know what that is. Other areas of Soviet research in psychopharmacology. Lighting color as a means of altering human behavior. I've heard that. I heard they do that in jails. Like,
but so this is really important, right? So what I'm saying is that we talk about consciousness, right? When I said consciousness, I want you to understand it's like your perception of light, color, sound, smell, this, that, you know what I mean? So they're, like I said, this idea of this interconnected, I'd say there's some philosophical brilliance but also this absolutely material, actionable, even though it is against nature. And it is, but of course, since you don't have cause and effect, you don't care. You wipe out millions of people. And there's, there, anyways, so we know, all of us know a lot about drugs, psychopharmacology, but light and color as a means of altering human behavior. So, light and color. There we go. Psycho-optics, Soviet research in photic flicker.
Right. Yeah.
Flicker rate.
Yep. That's what people are getting in their TV, right? Is the flicker stuff. A lot of those ads use flicker rate. It's pretty incredible. Wow. I mean, this is something else. There's order and the altering of human behavior. Sound as a means of altering human behavior. Infrasonic noise, sonic noise, ultrasonic noise, conclusion. Sensory deprivation, electromagnetic effects. And then personnel and institutes.
So these are people targeted, right? So this is for the military.
It's military stuff. Yeah, it's incredible. This is a very thorough. They have photographs of all these guys: Karelian photography, Vasiliev, Naumov, Sergeyev, Kulagina. It's really something else.
Yeah. So
where's this? Let me go back one more. Analysis of Soviet terror manipulation methods in relation to Romania. Wow. Crazy. Terror manipulation. Yeah, this is an incredible article. So they have how many slides is this?
It's a lot. We don't have to go through. I just gave you the whole document.
Right.
So we could just pull up, maybe just go through, just hit. We could look at let's go back to maybe sound.
There's some stuff. That's Karelian photography. Isn't that supposed to capture your aura, Karelian?
Yeah, but so this is at the end of this, all this research right there. So there's there was a group. It's sort of a quote unquote revolutionary sect, right, within the very high level of Soviet military personnel of whatever, and they they embody, they take all these things, but they create very positive framework for the whole world. Actually, it's pretty amazing, but also because this stuff is known about, stuff that we just say, oh, it's it's totally discounted, right? People, there's a much deeper level of understanding of these things, right? So even the material principles of telepathy. So there's certain things that we maybe are, our Christian heritage, we think we're
You're not
grounded in
supposed to do that.
certain things, or we
crap.
don't want these types of energies to even acknowledge they exist.
Right.
But they're going right into it and straight up astral projection. Go back to the astral projection stuff.
Okay,
this ties all the Ken Kizzy stuff. There's so much. Look at this sensory deprivation experimental stuff done in Northern Ireland. That was another laboratory.
Wow. Office of the Surgeon General, U.S. Army Office of the Surgeon General. Okay, so what page should I go to? I'm gonna bounce around.
I think
I only got about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I got
so
plans.
we can
Do you want to wrap it up or what?
Go back. There's so much stuff.
This is a whole nother show.
You're right.
This is a whole nother show. Maybe we should go through this on part 7. We can go through this and talk about some of this stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how many episodes more do you think you have planned?
I thought this was
going to be fini at the end.
Well, no, I thought one more. I'll just go through this.
Okay, let's plan for another one then. We'll go over this, and you have another 10 slides too.
We'll just go through the last slides here. We're just gonna wrap up.
You want to go through these?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the process again, the application of the theoretical I went through, and these are from basically a lecture. From this like leaked document, supposedly, psychopolitics, but this is for students who are Americans or whatever who are attending this. It's like a keynote address, right, for those who are attending the Leninist Institute of Political Action or whatever it's called. So, anyways, so these are these quotes from this psychopolitics. By psychopolitics, our chief goals are effectively carried forward to produce a maximum of chaos in the culture of the enemy is our first most important step. Our fruits are grown in chaos, distrust, economic depression, and scientific turmoil. At last, a weary populace can seek peace only in our offered communist state. At last, only communism can resolve the problems of the masses. A psychopolitician must work hard to produce the maximum chaos in the fields of mental healing. He must labor to increase the personnel and facilities of mental healing until at last the entire field of mental science is entirely dominated by communist principles and desires. You can go to the next one. You must. So again, this is from like a keynote address for people who are attending this. For people that are probably working in our government today, for that, okay. You must labor until we have dominion over the minds and bodies of every important person in your nation. You must achieve such disrepute for the state of insanity and such authority over its pronouncement that not one statesman so labeled could again be given credence by his people. You must work until suicide arising from mental imbalance is common and calls forth no general investigation or remark. And this is from the early 60s, by the way. You can read the last.
Okay, I'll get to that. With the institutions for the insane, you have in your country prisons that can hold 1 million persons and can hold them without civil rights or any hope of freedom. And upon these people can be practiced shock and surgery, so that never again will they draw a sane breath. You must make these treatments common and accepted, and you must sweep aside any treatment of any group of persons seeking to treat by effective means. Wow. That's crazy. That's basically just what happened under this last administration.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to, tie this in. And so this is an address. It's Levant Pavlovich Beria. So it's
this is Beria? That
Beria.
Guy's a total monster.
Yeah.
He was like a psychopath. Wasn't he like raping kids and burying them under his house? We had to get rid of him, right? Wow, that's crazy. I had no idea he said that.
Go to the next slide. I think it's still the address.
Do you want to read it or shall I?
Okay, I'll read it. So,
Okay.
psychopolitics is the art and science of asserting and maintaining dominion over the thoughts and loyalties of individuals, officers, bureaus, and masses, and the effecting of the conquest of enemy nations through mental healing. Think about mental hygiene, mental health initiatives, right?
Right.
Okay. And so this is my little summation. So there's all these stages: stage, man himself, man as a political organism, man as an economic organism, as this might be controlled by his desires, state goals for the individual and masses, loyalties. You can go to the next slide. Okay. So this is from the direct text. You can read that.
The general subject of obedience. The next is the anatomy of stimulus response mechanisms of man. The next is to subject of shock and endurance. The next is categories of experience. The next is the catalyzing and aligning of experience.
So just see how important this is. Look, everything we said.
Right.
General subject of obedience, stimulus response mechanisms, shock and endurance. That's trauma. Okay. Categories of experience. Categories of experience. What type of experience are you having? This is just, there's a lot of density in there, right? So we're talking about, okay, but categories of experience, like what type are you? Yeah. What, altered states of consciousness, etc. Or,
right.
But go ahead. Finish it.
The next is the use of drugs. The next is the use of implantation. The next is the general application of psychopolitics within Russia. The next is the organization and use of counter psychopolitics. The next is the use of psychopolitics in the conquest of foreign nations. The next is psychopolitical organizations outside Russia, their composition and activity. The next is the creation of slave philosophy in a hostile nation. The next is countering anti-psychopolitical activities abroad. And the final one, the destiny of psychopolitical rule in a scientific age. To this might be added many subcategories, such as the nullification of modern weapons by psychopolitical activity. Wow, that's incredible.
Well,
the destiny of psychopolitical rule in a scientific age. Incredible.
You can go to the next one. I think I should have some more.
I'll keep reading. Man as stimulus response animal. The entire subject of psychopolitical hypnosis, psychopolitics in general, depends on, for its defense, upon the continuous insistence on the part of the authoritative sources that such things are not possible. And should anyone unmask a psychopolitical operative, the operative should at once declare the whole thing to be a physical impossibility and use his authoritative position to discount any accusation.
Wow. Is that
That's incredible? That's incredible. You're saying that's from Berea?
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
You can go to that. I think that's
crazy.
Maybe that's
empty
it.
Slide. By uttering the following words, you can leave your eyes open for
a
while. Interesting choice of words there.
This is supposed to be when I was talking about the whole study of telepathy, and they had right after the Berlin Wall fell. So he did a mental Kasparovsky did a mental healing telepathic intervention on Russian television.
Wow.
It was broadcast all over. So this is part of that. That goes back, that the thing I was talking about.
Right. Is that on YouTube? Do you know? That'd be something else.
You look it up. I didn't find it, but maybe. So this is one of the things he did in this. It was supposed to be like a healing, right, or whatever, but it was also it was supposed to be, they were supposedly using their telepathic technology on these television frequencies.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can read that. This is a quote from that.
By uttering the following words, you can leave your eyes open for a while. Have a look at your surroundings. There should be no pointed objects, no fire. Your posture should be stable. If anyone is seriously ill, for example, suffering from epilepsy, please do not participate in our seance. Simply turn off the television. The camera will then pan to the audience on the TV studio with Kasparovsky's head superimposed.
Is it next slide? Finishes it. Okay, keep going.
That's it. We're done.
Oh, that's it. Okay, so I lost that. Okay, but anyways, so this Kasparovsky did this mass telepathic hypnotic seance, right? That was broadcast, and supposedly from this event, even though there was a big riot that took place the next day, it was said that, oh, the entire research on telepathy, all these phenomena are now discredited. It was just a waste of time. It was a big joke.
Wow.
So, but then you look at that quote from the other book. So I wonder if there is, and we got to end it up here, but there may be something of this thing. So this was literally it was not only a broadcast, it was supposed to be a telepathic transmission, like neural frequency, basically mind control, but using, of course, the term healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. Incredible information. Like, these guys were on a different level. There's something else going on there. A lot of that stuff seems to have been suppressed also in the West. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, and so a lot of this stuff is not. We don't even know it. Even going to Isaac Luria, right? Luria, the neuroscientist, writing in 1920 to 1950, 1960, talks about the reticular formation as a fundamental thing of the brain. Right. This is the filter of what we perceive as consciousness. And everything is now emphasizing brain. Oh, it's this part of the brain. Well, it's the whole adrenal hormonal glandular system. I found this book. They totally understood that. This is almost, you can look it up. You'll see very little on that. You see all this other stuff that, that dances around it or grazes the surface. But the cat, see, did you look that up and see if you can find
Look up what?
The Kasparovsky
broadcast?
That'd be cool. Just close with that.
Kasparovsky. Look up his name. Cash. P-I-R-O. There's a modern Kasparovsky, but there's not some old one. I don't see it. There must be some kind of Russian faith healer or something.
No. He was a doctor. He was a scientist. It was a very famous broadcast.
Let me see. Kasparovsky healing YouTube. I don't know if this is the guy. I don't think it is. When did this happen? 30s?
No. This was after this
is it then. This
in
is
the 80s. Okay.
1991, something like that.
Yeah, so when the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah. Oh wow. So yeah, this guy's all over the news. There's tons of stuff about him.
We see his actual seance, but it was supposed to be sending.
I think that's it.
He looks kind of like Zelensky, but supposedly they were sending out telepathic frequencies during the broadcast. So
this is probably it right here.
So yeah, there's a studio audience. So we don't have there's no
seance.
There's no subtitles, right?
We'll have to do it the next time. We'll have to. I'll get that video ready.
But
I gotta run. I gotta wrap it up.
Okay, but anyways, real quick, is that so? This event, right, which was supposedly the culmination of research on human brainwave, non-physical manipulation, whatever the DIA document is about, right? Supposedly, this 1991 thing showed that the whole thing was a fraud. They didn't do anything. It was just a joke. Soviets never had any ability to remotely manipulate human brainwaves, etc. So this was like the big, thing. Like all this research.
This was the big reveal. Like, hey, we didn't achieve anything.
Yeah, so he did this thing, and you can watch it. It's kind of cheesy, and it has a studio audience. It was, whatever. It did, yeah. But the DIA document would say otherwise. So that, we can go into that.
But it is interesting that they acknowledged that they would tell the public the opposite of that, right? So they would lie to the masses if they did it. Oh, this is the most important sentence. You must sweep aside any treatment of any group of persons seeking treat by effective means, man. We just went through that. That whole layout of COVID was a communist-inspired philosophical rollout. I think that's what this shows. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, and so look at this.
Or Leninist or whatever.
But look at this. You must achieve such disrepute for the state of insanity, which means what? Like you can't recognize it, right? But then such authority over its pronouncement. So, it's like, you're both, you're both destabilizing the institutional belief in the institutional framework, but then taking power, arbitrary power.
Right.
Again, the last paragraph. We'll just go back.
Oh, okay.
Just read that. So, with the institutions for the insane you have in your country, prisons that can hold 1 million persons and can hold them without civil rights or hope of freedom. So, this is again a lecture given to Americans, to implement this policy in the U.S.
Right.
Okay.
Incredible.
And upon these
people, people can be practiced shock and surgery so that never again will they draw a sane breath. So they're deliberately schismogenifying these people. It's crazy.
And you must sweep aside any treatment or group of persons seeking to treat by effective means. So
it's incredible. It's truly incredible.
All right.
Anyway, that's part 6, guys. I will put a link to Hans Uter's website, his new podcast, which is called Eyes Wide Open. I think Hans Uter Investigates. You can check that out. I was his first guest. And hopefully he'll be uploading a lot of his older shows he did with Jan Irvin. And look forward to talking to him again about episode 7. So thanks so much for your time. Really fascinating. Another fascinating talk, man. Amazing. Thank you. Stay there.